For me, there is only one thing that is the main criteria to succeed in an agile transformation, and that is trust. I'm Jan de Baere. I'm an organizational coach from Surgica. Basically, I help clients, the management of clients, typically for how to get organized in the current context. And what is the current context? Well, the current context is a context where we have knowledge workers. The complexity of where we live and what we have to do is ever increasing. We have an ever increasing speed of change. The priorities, they keep changing. And in that context, helping organizations how to thrive in that new context. That's what I do today. A bit more about my background. Well, I started as a developer, then analyst, then project manager, program manager, and now for the last 10, 15 years, I'm a coach. The thing well, two things actually. First of all, see how people, organizations, and teams, how they grow, how they grasp a conceptual idea that I give to them, and they combine it with their knowledge of the organization and create something that actually works in their context. I mean, in my business, organizational transformations, there are no recipes, so it's not like it's a planned city trip or something. It's more like an expedition, so it's more adventurous. And I mean, the adventurous part of the job, that's what I enjoy a lot. That's what I like. Whoa. Well, that's thanks for asking. It's well, I was asked to become a coach. I remember I was into a project that started far too late, and after about a month, the manager came to see me and he said, "Jan," he says, "I have 3 questions for you. The first question is, can you explain me how it is possible that the team is ahead of schedule? Well, you started. I mean, we asked you too late, so you're too late, and yet you're advance ahead of the schedule, and on top of that, we keep changing the requirements, and you don't complain about that. And on top of that, I mean, if you make a prediction and you tell it, it's accurate. I mean, that's the first time I see that. How come that?" And the second question he asked was if I could make sure that the laughter of the team was a little bit quieter, because it disturbs the rest of the floor, the people of the floor, because we laugh too much, according to him. And the third question, he said, was if I could get rid of the post-its on the wall, because it was not looking very professional. And then I answered him that the 3 things actually go together. It's one package, but we used, well, it was kind of what today we would call Scrum Ban, and talking 20 years back. So it's a combination, 10 years back, sorry. It's a combination of Scrum and Kanban. And later, I mean, when he saw the result of that, he asked me if it a company. So it's a company. In at that time, it was the Belgium department. So it was, let's say, 500 people of IT to get Agile introduced over there. So that's how I get into the coaching. Well, imagine you want to install Office 365, which is the newest version of Office, and you had to install it on a Windows XP machine. For the people who don't know, Windows XP is an old version of Windows. Now, if you would try that, the result would probably be a big error. Probably the computer would say no or something. Because, I mean, it doesn't fit. And that's basically what we tried to do. The the organization internally is organized in a certain way. It has a certain operating system, and if you want to try to install new stuff, it just refuses it. It creates an error. So it's not simply having another mindset, which typically is the answer that has been given. You have to change the mindset. Yes, that is true. But the old mindset, they created a certain operating system, and you have to change that operating system completely. Which means that as well, the financial part, as the HR department, as the middle management, you have to change it all piece by piece, because you cannot just, at least not in an existing organization, which is typically my case. You have an organization that exists, and then you have to change it. So that old mindset that created an operating system, and you have to change it. And it also means that you have to be able to talk to the top of the organization, the CIO, CEO, HR, finance, but also with the developers, the testers, the middle management. And because together you have to find a way to make it work. And it can only be piece by piece. So with a fixed mindset as a coach, you're lost. So I see a lot of coaches, well, not a lot of coaches, but a couple of coaches where they're very fundamental, and it clashes. I mean, it clashes. You cannot just force your way into it. You have to do it step by step, and that takes time and patience from the coach side as well. For me, there is only one thing that is the main criteria to succeed in an agile transformation, and that is trust. It all boils down to trust. You have to have trust from management, because you should not be limited in whatever you try to achieve, whatever you try to change. You have to have the trust of the people from the teams, because they have to make changes. And in order to earn trust, you have to have success. You have to change something for the better. Success as defined by the people you work with. So not as a personal success, what you see. And therefore, I think you have to invest in two things, which is speed. You have to make sure that you change something for the better, and you do it as fast as possible. The second thing is that you have to change in the right direction, and you have to have them both. So the speed and the direction need to be aligned. If you have speed without direction, that's very, very, very easy to do. And so you go to the management, you say, this is what they need to change. Then you go very fast. For maximum speed, you don't get where you want to go. So you have to get speed, and you have to have direction. If you only head in your ship in the right direction, but you have no speed, you will not advance neither. So in order to earn trust, you have to change something, have success, and go in the right direction. So those are the two things that main criteria for success in agile transformations, according to me. Well, for me, we're not longer living in the Industrial Revolution. People today are educated. Everything gets more complex. Everything changes faster and faster. We always have to do more with less and stuff like that. So that means that the context, and that is going on for quite some while now, quite some time now. So that means that today we are in a completely other context as during the Industrial Revolution, where most of the management practices actually started. Some would call it the VUCA world today. Now, Agile for me is the answer of IT to that changed context. Now, outside IT, in the other domains, they have the same changing context, of course. And they call it differently, but the driver of the change is the same. If you think about Henry Mintzberg, for example, in the 70s, he already said that autocracy was the organizational form of the future. In the 70s already. I mean, that it's there overall. So, and if you see what autocracy stands for, Adhocracy is he described it as a flexible, adaptable, and informal form of an organization that is defined by a lack of structure, formal structure, that uses multidisciplinary teams. And that is something that was written down in the 70s. That sounds a lot like Agile. So for me, the future of Agile is, well, Agile will merge into the bigger movement of the ever-increasing complexity, and will cease to exist as a name and will be broader. And for example, we just, I'm part of Cigica, I said it, and we used to call ourselves Agile in the Core. So the department I'm working in is Agile in the, used to call himself Agile in the Core. And we changed that because Agile is not saying anymore what we're doing, because we're not limited to IT. We go a lot broader. And having that name Agile in a broader context of organization, so that's when Agile ceased to exist for me, it has succeeded. Well, I could tell about a certain moment. I was having a coaching conversation with a lady, and it was about, I think, 6 months down the transformation. So it was just the two of us, and she said she went quiet. She started thinking, and she said, and after a couple of seconds that she was completely silent, she looks at me and she says, "Jan, do I understand that all the planning we have been doing about this transformation was useless? Basically, it's a waste of time." And I started smiling, and I said, "Yeah, you could say that. I mean, it's not a city trip." I said, "It's you can't predict what will come, so planning in that context is not very useful." And then she started thinking again, and then she said, "Yeah, but Jan, what would you have done if I would not have come to that conclusion?" And then I paused for a couple of seconds to make sure that what I was about to say was going to have impact. And then I responded and I said, "Wait a little bit longer." And then she was quiet again. And then she understood that I was waiting for 6 months for her to have that insight. Of course, I could have said it 6 months earlier, but that would not have had the same impact. I'm pretty sure we're, I don't know, 7 years later now, it's something that happened years back, that she still remembers it and that she still thinks like that. When I would have just said it to her in an intellectual manner, she would never have grasped it. It's the fact that she felt it herself, that she came herself to, but her face was, that's why I get up in the morning. That's why I get up in the morning, to see people making that switch from then getting a certain insight. That's wow. That's what I love about my job. My greatest success, when I talk to potential clients, I tend to say, okay, I had a department, 120 people, and they doubled their output in 2-3 years' time, or they went from worst of class to best of class in two years' time, or something like that. But that's what I would say to potential clients, and that's true as well. But for me personally, when I look at the feeling part, then it's for me, it's the switch. But I just described is as an example of a switch. So that's the moment when you can literally see that people get it. They get an insight. They change. They fundamentally change their thinking. To give another example, the first switch I ever observed was the manager talked about in the beginning. He didn't believe in agile. I mean, he saw it, but basically it was also his manager that told him, I mean, there's something new, agile, so make sure that somebody installs it. And at a certain moment, we were in a meeting, I mean, 7 people or something, and he was talking, and in the middle of his sentence, he stops. He looks up and he says, it doesn't say anything. I mean, he's silent, and then he turns to me and he says, "This thing actually works." I mean, everybody started laughing because everybody knew he was not the biggest believer. But that he said it, I mean, with those people around him, it was amazing. And today, for example, that person, he is worldwide responsible for agile. So in his company. So in the beginning, I worked for Belgium, but now he works worldwide for agile. So he's a really believer. And again, the switch, seeing people making the switch, seeing people grow, that is for me success. My favorite testing book. Well, I'm a consultant, a coach, but I go from client to client. So I would say it depends. If testing is a job for you, or you just get started into testing, then I would say just go for the usual suspects in terms of books or blogs or whatever. The art of software testing, how to break software, agile testing, and those kinds of books. So I would say if you're looking for practical guidance, which tools to use, so the more practical it is, I would say go for the newest blogs or books. If it's about principles you want to learn, then I would advise the opposite. I would go for older books, things you might not directly link to testing. The Art of War, for example, for Sun Tzu, that has value, and it is about principles. A book that is that old and still is read, then it means that there are some principle in there that have value. Now that is if you just want to have testing as a job. If you want to, and I want to be innovative, then I would suggest you do not go to the center of testing knowledge, but go to the edges of testing, where testing meets another domain, because it's where the sea meets the land, or where the forest meets grassland. That's the place where new stuff is born. Yeah, so go to those places and try to link it back to testing, because that's where innovation takes place. Another option, and that is if you want to be even more innovative, and that is acceptation. That's you have something that exists, but you use it for something completely new. I think we all know the example of how the microwave started. I mean, microwave started when somebody was experimenting with radio communication, and he noticed that the bar in his pan started melting, and that is how he made the link. Okay, if I can melt chocolate from a distance, then, and he was open-minded, and through his open-mindedness, he was able to, what he discovered, to actually use it, not for what he initially meant it for, but for use it in something else. That's where innovation mostly comes from, and where the fast innovation comes from. Acceptation. Be open to novelty, even where you do not expect it. So do not look at the center, but look somewhere else. That would be my advice if you want to go to the next level, so to say. I would say same answer, more or less the same of the previous thing. Yes, you can take the usual suspects, but don't spend all your time into that. Spend a lot of time also in completely other things. I mean, when you have more complexity, you will see that we tend to get more natural sciences, behavioral, and because that's where that kind of knowledge we will need in order to get forward. The more we will get complex, the more we will go away from the strict and all the standards, but go more into the natural sciences, and also looking these kinds of blogs, and that might do the trick for me. In fact, that does a trick for me, at least.